Good morning, everybody, and welcome along to the Blood Red Morning Bulletin live on the Blood Red YouTube channel on St. Patrick's Day. My namesake saint, you joined me, Patrick Smith, and I'm also joined by Liverpool.com's Ben Bokshak. We've got a few transfer topics for you today, as per usual. Ben, let's start then, shall we? Let's get straight into it. Mason Mount, I think, is going to be one of the main topics today, with former Liverpool player Danny Murphy believing his old club will be desperate to sign him. I'm not so sure about that myself, but Liverpool have been linked with him, haven't they, since the January transfer window? You know, they've got the likes of City, United, and Newcastle in for him because his contract's going to expire at the end of next season, so he's entering the final 12 months. Danny Murphy's basically said that I definitely want to keep him because I know what I'm getting. I'm 100% getting commitment from a player who loves the club, and he's a super talent and all that stuff. Do you think he'd be a good signing for Liverpool? Like, do you think they really should be desperate to sign him, or you could even be a little sweetener for a potential Jude Bellingham deal, couldn't he? If you say we've got one of your England teammates here, come on, Jude.
Yeah, I mean, I think Liverpool are just desperate to sign any midfielder, really, not necessarily Mason Mount at the moment. It feels like Liverpool are just desperate for anyone at this point. Probably Jude Bellingham more so than Mount. But I think James Joyce recently wrote an article about how the 50 million that is Mason Mount's price tag is obviously significantly less than Jude Bellingham's, and combine that with the fact that Liverpool probably need at least two midfielders this summer, maybe Mount would be the smarter option. And I think I'm kind of inclined to agree. I think Mount, although he's not having the greatest of seasons this season, over the course of his career, he's been pretty consistent. I think he's someone who contributes with goals and assists from midfield, which Liverpool don't really have at the moment. But at the same time, I think something that's kind of not really discussed and a little bit overlooked when it comes to Mount is the fact that defensively he's quite solid as well. He wins a lot of his defensive duels. He presses a lot, and I think that makes him very suitable to Klopp's system. He's creative as well. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it, and obviously one of the biggest aspects as well is the homegrown factor.
Yeah.
Especially if Oxlade-Chamberlain and James Milner do leave in the summer, then Mount coming in could be crucial just in terms of being able to register enough players in the squad and fulfilling that homegrown quota.
I mean, he's also played a lot of games as well and has a lot of very good experience, even winning a Champions League. He's only 24 as well. I mean, it's weirdly an experienced player, but also someone who can last you 7 or 8 years. So I think it's almost a bit of a no-brainer. But the point you make there, but I think Liverpool really need a centre midfielder who's creative. Now, not necessarily a number 10 like we've got Fabio Carvalho probably is a number 10. Mason Mount's kind of the ideal profile to slot into that Liverpool midfield and provide creativity. I think the Bournemouth loss shows that they need someone like Mount who can maybe, break down that low block with a nice pass or, something that's not just knocking it sideways that we've seen a lot recently, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, I've been writing about this since the Champions League final defeat in the summer. Obviously, back then, people made a big deal about how Liverpool's XG was so much higher than Real Madrid's. But if you actually analyze the chances, I should put in brackets, the quote brackets, the chances that Liverpool had in that game, they weren't high quality chances. So they were feeding off scraps, and like you mentioned, Bournemouth, it's just been a recurrent theme throughout the season. I think even against Real Madrid on Wednesday night, Liverpool didn't really create a lot of high.
It's very snapshotty, isn't it?
Yeah, that's so. I think they do kind of miss that creativity, and Klopp tried to. The way Klopp's been approaching the sort of low defensive blocks is by overloading the attack, playing a 4-2-4 formation, but I don't necessarily think that's working. I think the best way to do it, if you look at someone like Manchester City, for example, are really good at breaking down low defensive blocks, is overload the midfield, draw out the opposition, and then you have you create pockets of space for the likes of Salah, Nunez, and etc. to run into. And I think Mount would be a really good sort of midfielder to do that. He can come deeper and he can go forward, he can create, and he can find those pockets of space as well in the final third. So for me, I think just in terms of that, my ideal summer would be have someone creative come in like Mason Mount, then a sort of backup for Fabinho as a more defensive type of midfielder.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree. I think they definitely need someone, ideally Mason Mount, but someone of that play style, as we've discussed there. I think they also need someone with a bit of an engine, a bit of a box-to-box machine, someone like Kefren Turam at Nice, of that, big physical presence, box-to-box. I think they need one of them, and obviously Jude Bellingham would be nice as well, wouldn't he? But speaking then of the Liverpool midfield and Liverpool players in general, Jurgen Klopp's been told he's too loyal to his players and should be more like Pep Guardiola at Man City, according to Charlie Adam, the former Liverpool and Scotland midfielder. Charlie Adams basically said that I think Jurgen Klopp's been a little bit too loyal to these players, especially when you look what Pep Guardiola's done with João Cancelo, etc. I mean, do you agree with that point, Ben? Do you think Klopp sometimes, keeps his players for longer than he should? An example being Naby Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain. Now, I know they're not the most attractive players for other clubs to come in and sign, but do you agree that Klopp can sometimes be a bit too loyal and a bit too trusting of his players?
I don't necessarily think so, because you have Wijnaldum leaving, Sadio Mane left. He still let go of a lot of, you would say, his core starting 11. I think he can be ruthless when he needs to be. Just look at how Fabio Carvalho has been sort of iced out and isn't featuring a lot. I don't necessarily think he's too loyal to his players. I think in some cases you can make an argument. For example, I think Kostas Tsimikas has played really well, and Andy Robertson maybe not so much this season, and yet Tsimikas hasn't really featured a lot, especially in 2023. Even though when he does feature, he comes in, gets an assist, and does well. So I guess in that sense you can make an argument, but on the whole, I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think he can still be pretty ruthless, and he said that himself, that he's going to be ruthless in the summer, and players are going to leave, and he's going to replace those aging players. So I think that is what's going to happen, and you're already seeing it with Firmino pretty much confirmed to leave. James Milner, I don't think he's going to get a new contract. Naby Keita is going to be leaving as well. So there's already going to be a sort of mass exodus at Liverpool. And I think that kind of proves the point that he's not loyal at all.
Yeah, I certainly disagree with Charlie Allen there myself as well. I think it's more of a case that Klopp's just had such a good squad over the past 5 years. Why would you want to get rid of most of them? There seems to be such a great group of lads they've got there as well. So I think it's a bit of nonsense from him, if I'm being honest. And, if anyone doubts Klopp being too loyal, I think this summer we'll see that he can be ruthless when he needs to. I think there's going to be a lot of outgoings. We've got loads of comments, Ben, in our comment section about Ryan Gravenberch from Bayern Munich. There's rumours circulating that Liverpool are hoping to agree a deal with him. He was a highly rated prospect, wasn't he, at Ajax, moved to Bayern Munich. It really hasn't worked out for him there. Would he be one that you'd take a gamble on at Liverpool?
I don't know. I was never really that convinced by him at Ajax. I think he's got quality on the ball, but he kind of just reminds me a bit of Paul Pogba. He's kind of just a luxury midfielder, if that makes sense. He can kind of breeze through games, and yes, when he's on it, he's really eye-catching and fun to watch. But I think he kind of lacks consistency. And in that Liverpool midfield, I think right now you need someone consistent, reliable, and relatively defensively solid as well. And I think Gravenberch, he brings a lot in his offensive game, but defensively I think he's lacking at the moment. And obviously the fact that he hasn't really managed to feature at Bayern Munich as well is kind of a concern. I think Liverpool could do a lot better. If Liverpool were to sign it, almost feels more like the Arthur type of signing, last minute rush signing, just because purely he's available and it's a gamble.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely a gamble. I think I agree. He's a similar, really weirdly play style to Pogba, and I'm not sure that's what you need in a Liverpool midfield. I think you need someone with a bit more desire and energy. As you said, that inconsistency we have noticed at times from Gravenberch. haven't we? Ruben Neves maybe one that's a bit more defensive-minded. He's been heavily linked again today. I think that'd be a much more solid signing. Someone who knows the league as well, can come in and just sort of steady the ship a bit. But let's move on then to centre halves. Liverpool have been told they don't need to sign Josko Gvardiol, according to John Barnes. A bit of a strange one, but Barnes has said he thinks he was very good at the World Cup, but he doesn't necessarily think that Liverpool need him right now. I mean, what's your take on this, Ben? Because the form of Joel Matip and Joe Gomez, to be fair, they've been injured and haven't really played much this season. But the injury problems alone sort of make you think Liverpool surely need a centre-half. And if Gvardiol is this amazing new talent, good on the ball, supports Liverpool apparently, surely he'd be the ideal signing, wouldn't he?
Yeah, especially because he's a left-sided centre-back as well. So Liverpool right now don't really have anyone who can play the left-sided centre-back apart from Van Dijk. So he's got no competition. When Joe Gomez has come in, he's looked a bit shaky. I think Konate has played there a few times, but I haven't been convinced by him on the in the left-sided role. I think he's much better on the right. So I think Guardiola would make sense, and I do agree with you. I think Liverpool do need a centre-back this summer. I think potentially Liverpool might even sell one of Matip or Gomez to create the funds, especially Matip. I think his contract.
I think Matip might go,
in 2024, so he'll only have a year left by the end of the summer, and I think for that reason I can see Liverpool going for a centre-back. I don't know if it's going to be Guardiola, because if Liverpool are also going for Jude Bellingham, then Guardiola's sort of touted price tag is in the excess of 100 million or so.
Do you mean to tell me FSG won't spend 300 million, Ben?
I can't see that day. I think that'll be the day when it snows red or something crazy like that. But I think Leipzig are pretty keen on keeping him this summer as well from their communication. And recently they've been, when they wanted to keep someone, they've been pretty adamant at keeping them. I mean, Nkunku is a good example. He could have gone in the summer, but they decided to keep him. Naby Keita as well. Obviously, Liverpool signed him a year in advance. So I think that will be the case with Guardiola as well. If they don't want to let him go, then they won't. And that will mean Liverpool will have to look elsewhere. And it's probably the smarter option, considering Liverpool probably won't be able to afford Guardiola anyway this summer if Bellingham, and if they're going to pursue more midfielders as well.
I mean, as frustrating as this will be for viewers and Liverpool fans here, it could very well be the case that they agree a fee with Guardiola for 2024, maybe not 2023, and then when Matip's contract expires, Guardiola comes in. I mean, that's always a possibility of Leipzig and the way they do business, because the Red Bull model, they often tend to do those sales for the next year, don't they? We've seen, is it Šeško at Salzburg as well? He's moving away for that similar thing, and a few other players. But yeah, we'll leave that there then for this morning's bulletin. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching along with us. A few interesting topics today. I'm sure Mason Mount will continue to divide the fan base on whether Liverpool fans want to see him come in or not. And Ben Boxshak, thank you very much for joining us. We'll catch you again next week on the Morning Bulletin.